We looked at it, we agreed, don't know why it was set up that way. So we're raising it up to 50%. And and my response was, you're setting a bad precedent here. You realize that. And the vice president of the captive is like, how is this a bad precedent? And I said, because I kicked and screamed and you gave me my way.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Defense Never Rests. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm joined with Melissa again. Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. It's a sunny Friday. I am ready.
It's summer almost. We're getting there.
Yes.
The weather has been flip-flopping between hot and cold, though, still, which is a little odd.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We're in thunderstorm season. That every day, there's an isolated thunderstorm around 6 o'clock.
Yes, that's true.
Potential for tornado. Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
But so today we're joined by Steve Eckert, and Steve and I have worked together in the past and have known each other for a number of years. And I asked him to come on just because he is a man who's not short on words. He is, I think, hilarious and just a delight to listen to and to talk with. And, he just started a new role at Flagger Force and is really passionate about it. So I thought it'd be great just to have him come on and talk about his experience in claims and just, his path to where he is now in his new role.
He sounds awesome. Yeah, let's chat with him.
He's great. Let's bring him in. Good morning, Steve. Welcome to The Defense Never Rests. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks. Happy to be here.
So, for our listeners out there, I've known you for years, and I'm so happy that I finally got you on this podcast because and as I told Trisha, she was like, Steve is going to be such a great podcast guest. So you have a lot to live up to right now. We're expecting a lot out of you.
I'm ready for semantics.
I'm getting that.
I hope you have an hour stand-up routine prepared for this, based on what I've heard.
I usually freelance. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
But so, you've worked in claims for how many years now?
Almost a little over 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah. So, you really have an amazing experience from a lot of different perspectives too, because you've worked at a lot of different types of organizations, and now you're at Flagger Force, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. But I really want to dig in first to get, talk to you about how you ended up in claims, because I ask this of every guest, because everyone has a different story as how they got to where they are. So I'm curious, and I don't think you and I have really ever talked about this. So I'm curious to hear what your path was.
When you were a little boy, were you dreaming of one day working in the insurance field? Because I feel like a lot of people don't.
No, I would definitely say I don't, or I didn't have any aspirations. I was even surprised that I had, I worked, I started my career in personal lines with one of the companies that does the commercials. It was just, when I got out of college, the first job I had was I was a youth counselor at a residential setting for different age groups, and just just saw this opportunity to go there to begin my career in insurance. And it, at the time, it paid twice as much as what I was currently making. So, that was the most attractive thing coming in the door. And for the first year, I was the inside rep. It's just taking the calls, taking the recorded statements. And then after a year, I was sent to estimatics school, learn how to write the estimates. And funny enough, I always joke with people about this. So, I was told, or I was taught that your hand is roughly a 1 hour dent on a vehicle. And, Megan, obviously we've met in person. I'm kind of a big dude. So I was at a body shop writing an estimate, and the inside rep, or one of our seniored outside adjuster got a phone call from the body shop that I was at, and he said, "Hey, could you come out and write an estimate on this vehicle, or excuse me, write a supplement on this vehicle?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Let me check the dispatch notes." He goes, "I believe Steve's there right now. I think he can do it." He goes, "No, you're going to have to come out and write a supplement on the vehicle that Steve's writing the estimate on." And he said, "I can tell he's new because he put his hand up on the dent, and that dude has a hand like a bear paw. So he just covered a 4-hour dent, like just by going like this." So, so I was like, "All right, cool, thank you." So I mean, that was, that was my indoctrination into insurance, into claims. And just really, I'd say it was my first real job out of college, and just didn't understand how things worked, and just chose to leave the organization. And was with another company, completely different industry, different everything, and then left there. And a friend had told me about, he said, "Hey, I know you have an insurance background. One of my buddies does something in insurance," and he's like, I want to connect the two of you." And he did. I interviewed, and it was with one of I'd say the largest TPAs in the world. Like, I had no idea what a TPA was. I only knew, like from the personal auto, from seeing their insurance, or excuse me, their commercials, and started my career at a TPA, and was there for roughly 14 years. Had a voluminous experiences, backgrounds, through promotions, got to work on different clients, different programs. And of course, as I became more senior, then I also got the higher exposure claims. And excuse me, was, like I said, was there for about 14 years. And just had, I guess the politically correct way to say it is, some philosophical differences with the direction of the industry, I'll say. More, not so much the organization, but just, I think, because at the end of the day, I think all the organizations are really utilizing the same algorithms and parameters on the TPA side. And then a friend had gone to I'll call them a regional TPA. I mean, they're not at national, or technically they're international, so more
They're pretty
regional.
big. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but same. It was fresh opportunity. The first year was very good, and then the second year, the philosophies from the international TPA started creeping into that organization. And I was like, "Nope, you're turning into that X company." And I left X company, and I'm not going to be here for this. So, really took some time out. And, what it came down to, I had interviewed, looked at opportunities and safety, risk, underwriting, anything. And really, no matter what I had applied to, it was like, "Well, with your extensive background in claims, did you see we have this claims opportunity?" And and time after time, it was like, "Yeah, I know." And it was posted right above the job that I just applied to. I have no interest in the claims positions. So really met with a bunch of closed doors, but kept on going. And prior to coming to Flagler Force, I was the claims manager with a municipality organization with an insurance pool. And just really, I liked that role. I mean, I loved not having an unrealistic pending that I logged into every day, and was like, "Oh, okay, what fires do I need to put out today?" So really, that ability to navigate my job and be able to to feel like I had accomplished things. Like in my career with the TPA, I said, really, no, I felt like my house was in the median on the interstate. And, when you sit down at your desk and log in, you're pulling out of your driveway and you got to be doing at least 70 to 80 miles an hour to merge into traffic.
Huh.
And, then if you're able to take a lunch, you just kind of slow down a little bit, because at lunch you're thinking about things that you need to do. And then you also know that your phone is ringing and your emails are going off. And then whether you took a lunch or not, or ate at your desk, at some point in the day, you're like, well, I could work for the next 24 hours and still not be caught up. So slam on the brakes, pull into the meeting, and you're done for the day. And truly, I mean, that's how I felt. And, like I said, with this, the role prior to Flagger Force got me back into what I know, and it had, I mean, there were some downsides there. I mean, because, I'm currently the claims manager at Flagger Force, but my role was claims manager and risk and safety management, because I didn't have the designation, the CSP, Certified Safety Professional. Yeah, didn't have that designation. So it was just more of the title of, what I was doing. And been at Flagger Force for almost 4 months now. And I mean, I absolutely love it. I mean, the culture in, the people themselves, the philosophies of the organization, and just, everybody just has, there were some folks in my former TPA positions where you just, you heard them over the phone. I mean, they were arguing with claimants or attorneys or whatever the case is. And you might be, like after work, yeah, you go have a beer with them or something like that. But like during the workday, they were almost like you just wanted to steer away from them. And, have not, and I don't foresee having that experience here at Flagger Force. I mean, it's just that organizational philosophy. And, and I think it goes, for me, one of the numerous cliches that I've picked up on or created over my years in the TPA world and insurance world was, everybody's trying to, thump in their chest that they're the largest organization. Like nobody thumps their chest that they're the best organization. Mm-hmm. And I think, with Flagger Force, we are the largest temporary traffic control service. But we're the best. I mean, what goes on behind the scenes here for the, the product that you see out there, I mean, is just, I mean, it is amazing the day-to-day job that goes into, what you see out there in the field that, that's representing us.
Steve, for people who maybe aren't familiar with Flagger Force, just like give us like a brief overview of the company.
We are, like I said, it's a temporary traffic control service. So typically, we have at least 80% of our clients are utility companies. And we have our largest footprint is in Pennsylvania. And we're strategically working down the East Coast. So we've, really have a somewhat of a presence down to Florida now, and then over, we may have one contract here or there, but we're, our folks are the people out there turning the paddle, the stop and slow paddle, have the lane closures or lane mergers set up, even road closures. We're still, we don't just put up a sign and walk away. I mean, we're actively working those areas, to ensure the safety of the public as well as our clients.
What I think some people might not appreciate is the risk associated with that job is high. I mean, like if you're on highways and people traveling at high rates of speed, I'm sure you see a lot of catastrophic situations just because out of the nature of the job.
Yeah, fortunately, we have not had a fatality. You know,
Good.
yeah, we get
Doing good yourself.
notifications. You know, we get notifications. You know, of, hey, was this one of your people? You know, we see in the news, you know, an unfortunate news clipping that, you know, that someone was struck and lost their life. And, you know, fortunately, we can say it wasn't our employee. But, you know, being the claims manager, I mean, I do see everything from right now, I mean, this past week, you know, the folks that were just ran out of water out on a job site or something, just, you know, the issues with the heat, you know, but then also down to the miscellaneous stuff of, hey, I just wanted to call in and say this, and, you know, whatever that is. And, you know, when I started my career, I worked for with the TPA, I worked for a national refuse company. And, you know, people will call in and say, hey, you know, like, I don't know what your truck number was, but I have I'll just say purple because I don't know any refuse companies that have purple, that have purple trucks driving around. But, you know, I have a purple paint transfer on my vehicle. So I know it was you guys. Okay, well, your claim's denied because we don't have any purple vehicles in our fleet. Well, then their follow-up question is, well, then who was it? We're like, well, it wasn't us. And, you know, like, sorry, we can't help you pursue your claim. Similarly, you know, we get our public complaint or concern information. And, you know, at times it's like, hey, you know, I don't know who this is out here, but, you know, they're not doing a great job. You know, well, it's not us. But you know, and we're, you know, so those kind of lay there, you know, it's not like, you know, we're not going to reach out to determine who that was and forward that, you know, that complaint to them. But, you know, we do, you know, our crew members, you know, just see a lot of stuff, you know, where they're, you know, they have a designated, hey, we're sending X amount of vehicles at a time. And, you know, there's a gap in traffic. So you know, once the vehicles have passed that crew member, then they turn the paddle from slow to stop. Inevitably, you know, somebody comes up and they can see the rear bumper of a car that just went through. So they, you know, suddenly we're making them late for work, or we're, you know, so we, you know, unfortunately have those instances, you know, where the public complaints are misleading in that regard, you know, because of the fact that, you know, hey, we're out here protecting you as well as the client that hired us to provide this service. And, you know, we understand, you know, we didn't, you know, you tripped over the dog on your way out, or you spilled coffee and had to change your shirt, you know, well, that, as we say in the insurance industry, that was the proximate cause of you know, of you being late, you know. So now, but, you know, that person with that stop slow paddle becomes the focus of that person's negative, you know, negative opinion. And, you know, it is, you know, we have to, you know, we educate our people, just, you know, just don't be confrontational, just don't be adversarial. You know, you understand that. I mean, if somebody's beeping and honking at you, you know, occasionally, discretionarily, you know what, I cannot have you, like, I can't hear on the walkie-talkie if you sit here on your horn for the next 5 minutes and just blow it at me. So discretionarily, you know, there folks like that could be sent through just to ensure that the safety of the work zone is protected.
You know, that's something I didn't ever really think about, like the road rage aspect of people and how they may react to, like, your people just doing their job and following, you know, safety protocols and instructions, and, you know, how they could be at risk for themselves just because someone's mad that they have to stop. Or
yeah. Oh yeah.
Construction, you know, that they're and I don't know why it's not something I really thought about, but that's, I'm sure you see claims of, people throwing like something out their window at, someone on the road with the sign or something like that, just because people have their own rage.
Well, and I think it's that, our thing is situational awareness. Whether, I mean, you need to be aware of your surroundings, especially when you're dealing with the public and, dealing in those areas. But, think about it in other aspects too. I mean, you buy a new Toyota Camry, and then suddenly every car you see on the highway is a Toyota Camry. You're like, oh my gosh, so many people have these. I worked with, I was in retail sales, sales coordinator for a construction dealership, construction equipment dealership. And, you start driving past job sites and you're like, hey, why? That's not our, that's not our client, or that's not our piece of equipment there, or, we don't see our sticker on that. So, yeah, as you become more aware of, when you're driving through these areas and see these things, you do connect the dots and see that more. And suddenly, for the most part, I mean, everybody starts out as a crew member or for our field, with our field operations. So they drive their personal vehicle. And within, we've tried to I don't want to say aggressively promote, but the steps are in place for you to be promoted into your own vehicle. So when the initial promotion occurs, you have your vehicle, but then you also have a set amount of cones and a set amount of signs. So that's then you get that. Well, then from there, you get another promotion, and that provides you with, I believe it's twice the amount of cones. So the more complex. And, for the folks to see that, I had, we have an extensive onboarding here, and then also our immersion training as well, because here we have the day-to-day operations. We have two separate buildings. One is our operations service center, where our clients are calling in, or anybody's calling in. They're fielding those, all those calls. Whether it's an employee calling and saying, hey, I have to sit down. I need a break. I'm hot. I ran out of water. Whatever the case is, to any type of accident, whether it occurred in or around our work zone, those complaints. But then also the employees calling in for other reasons as well. And seeing through that immersion training, you get a day in the life of. So we have, there's a few shifts down there, but I sat in on 3 shifts. So, each of those shifts has their needs, their priorities, what they're doing. The first shift is, they're like, hey, there might be an issue with the signs or the crew or whatever the case is. Then there's the transition team, looking at afternoon assignments or going into the next day. And then the overnight is obviously anything that comes up after, like first, second, third shift, basically, that they each have their priorities that they're dealing with. And over here, this is more of the the nuances of the day-to-day role. And just and the cool thing about the onboarding was I had 3 of the people in my onboarding were from the field. They had been promoted, and once you promoted, I mean, you come back in and to do the training. And we had a great blend of, while I have my extensive background in claims, and hence the reason I'm the claims manager now, you had some first, hey, this is my first job out of college, whether it was in finance or down at the service center. But then also we had a good blend of the field, our field operations as well. And, funny enough, And I really like that, because you get that unique perspective from each of them, what each of us is a day in the life, and I think I was in my role for about a month, but then to see how all the puzzle pieces fit together.
Sure.
And and it was, and I think that claim, it's the old cliche, claims are claims. I mean, you just kind of handle them, whereas with this, and funny enough, the field operations folks were like, oh my God, I cannot believe, how can you sit in an office? Like, this is crazy to me that I can't, and they had to, take breaks, stand up, and just kind of walk around the room, because of that. And then conversely, when you're hearing, like, yeah, I see the reports that come in because of my role, but for some of the newer, the new folks into the organization, to hear that firsthand experience of what those field operations people do encounter. I mean, it's so eye-opening. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you really had to deal with that. So just such a great blend. I mean, it was such a unique opportunity, which I think all of us value going through that, just to see everybody's roles in the organization.
Well, and I think it's just so important too that you have firsthand knowledge how all these other roles operate, so you can better understand claims when they come in too. When you have firsthand experience with it, I think it just makes you more aware and just better at your job when you kind of know how the operations work.
Yeah, and because how we're set up, we don't have, I mean, we have a claims department, but it is, the initial intake is, they're dealing, like, they have a general script that they follow. So then what, we need to, from the claims department, we see those come in, but we're like, okay, so we need to follow up with this person, with those photos. We need to follow up. Okay, we need to get the police report information, or the responding officer's information, to determine that. And, just making sure everybody's on the same page, in that process. And, no, I mean, everybody is eager to help. I mean, with any, and in my, this morning, I had a situation, for example, where I was like, hey, there was an incident that occurred in 2018, and I need to find these, due to the interrogatories, I need the address of this. And I mean, I'll plead ignorant. I mean, I don't know where to find that. I mean, I knew enough to be dangerous, and I'm like, okay, here's where I looked and I found this and this. But it is that ability to just, hey, could you help me for a second? And while, as the quote is, everybody's busy, but while everybody is busy, everybody is equally able to put what they're currently looking at on hold to assist another team member.
Yeah.
And, the open door policy of, I'm sure people don't necessarily like the music that's coming out of my office from time to time.
Well, what music is coming out of your office? We need to know this.
I was just thinking that.
It could be, I am a huge, I just call it death metal. So sometimes I have my gym music on, but then I am a tremendous fan of yacht rock radio on Sirius XM.
I like yacht rock. Death metal. I can understand why people might be like, that's Steve.
Yeah.
He's raging out.
Yeah, that could be, but I'm not. I mean, it's in an earshot. It's like, well, that's that's a growl that I think is only required to, in the afterlife, that they would hear that music. But
Did that help your stress level during the day though? Because I feel like I would just have like panic attacks listening to that while also trying to work.
it's funny enough, like when I lift, I mean, I have my gym music playlist, and it is that style of music, that heavy aggressive music. And then when like my workouts, strength workout, I have that music on. But then if I switch over to something that's more of a CrossFit or, something like that, then I have rap music on, or something with a beat, that I can just keep, it just kind of helps me through. But yeah, like the aggressive music doesn't affect me. Like my wife walked in when I was working from home, and she's like, how can you listen to this music? And I was reviewing a demand pack. And I'm like, I don't know, it's just for me, like right now, it's just on in the background. It's really, more white noise. But if you're having a bad day, like you cannot, with
It's very
Christopher,
guttural. It is.
yeah,
It's like all
but
guttural.
but you can't have a grr on your face when you're listening to Christopher Cross or Boz
No.
Scaggs or, Steely Dan. Like
Michael
you just,
McDonald
yeah, like you
like
just can't.
crooning to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
exactly. You
way.
just, yeah.
It lifts you up.
Yeah. So no matter what, at least whomever walks past will have that look of, am I hearing that correct? I'm like, yeah. Yeah. And and it is, like you said, it's like, how can you work with, but I also, I mean, my door's open and it's not booming out of here by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you can hear the heavy guitar or the saxophone, maybe something like that. But always anybody walks in, I mean, the first thing I do is turn off the music. So because they are, while I can just zone out and do my thing, whomever
Taken
stops
aback.
in, yeah, whoever stops in
Taken aback.
deserves my undivided attention. And I can't be sitting there looking at them like, banging my head or drumming on my desk. That would be obviously completely inappropriate.
The wise choice.
So, yeah.
It's funny. So our someone in our office, Oliver, he would listen to that type of music too.
Really?
Yes, and I've always had my office right next to him, and he wouldn't do it early in the day. It was more of like a afternoon activity, and I would be like, how can he concentrate with this? Like, how can? And he is, he does a products work. He dives really deep and like he has a lot of like complex stuff. And I'm like, how is he thinking straight? Like,
maybe we've missed the boat, Megan. Like, apparently this works for people.
yeah, I don't listen to anything except around Christmas time. I have Christmas carols playing.
Oh, well, that is bad. That is not an option.
I jam out to Taylor Swift sometimes while working.
Oh.
Steve, you should try Taylor Swift. I think maybe
I have a whole playlist with female artists.
I knew I
Taylor
loved you.
Swift, Katy Perry, anybody, Nicki Minaj. I mean, I solely,
eclectic.
yeah.
I wouldn't put Nicki Minaj and Taylor Swift in the same bucket.
Oh, they're on the same playlist. So, but there are a couple heavy metal bands that have done Taylor Swift's covers.
That's cool.
So that's,
I would actually want to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my former, they're, I'll send that to you offline. So
we'll chat later about it.
Yeah. But and it's not like they can hear like all right, that's not yacht rock or something like that, but they're not able to make out any of the lyrics. And some of the stuff, I don't even know what the lyrics are. You're just like, it's just like, all right, yeah, or that, just that guttural, you put some rocks in the blender and it's just like, what did he just say? For 5 minutes, whatever the case is. So
Oh, that's a good
I know, it's like, where did we go from here?
Like, what were we
Where
even
were
talking
we?
about?
Who are we?
It's
What
really
is the
devolved.
show?
Downward spiral.
Well, one thing I had thought about earlier is, so you had a length of time that you worked at two different TPAs, and now you're more, I like to call it an in-house position, but how, how does your role feel different from a TPA when you're kind of managing, managing insureds in a way and help. I just view TPAs as your guy. You're kind of helping them along the litigation process, and you serve like as an intermediary. But now, like, how is your role different now, or how do you feel differently about your role?
Well, in the TPA roles, when I spoke to whomever my client was, it was always we. This is how we, I believe that we should do this. I believe that we should do this, organizationally. And now I am the we. I mean, so when, when we have those conversations, I worked, in my role as the adjuster, I was on the phone with whomever at the client, having that conversation of, this is what I think where the reserve should be set. This is what I think, I deem a settlement amount. But, now, on this side, the we, when I speak, is my vice president of safety and risk. And, then the we is the CFO, the vice president of finance. And while I had that we mentality at the TPA, it's different. I mean, being on this side of it now, saying like we, it truly is.
The company.
It truly is us.
It's Flagger Force.
Yeah. And there's been some challenges. I mean, in that regard, that philosophy, but then also, coming in, like, I have a fresh set of eyes on a claim that's 4 years old. Okay, well, we've had a game plan for the past 4 years, so, hey, while we appreciate your opinion, no, this is the strategy that we have looked at in the defense or possible, compromised resolution of this matter. And, while some of that has not changed, like I said, I mean, when I was on the phone with Y company, I shared Y's philosophy. And that was, I think, and that was really one of the things that, that helped me, I think, and continues to help me is, I was on at one of the TPA, well, both TPAs, actually, I was on a captive program. And the captive, one of the captives, I think, had 10 members, and then the other one had 132 different members, or 137. So, I had to manage 130 plus different claims philosophies, claims mentalities, service instructions, authority levels.
Feels impossible.
And yeah, but once we had a conference call, or a telephonic review, excuse me, where we had 4, I'm going to, just for easy numbers, 4 adjusters talking about 7 claims. And, the adjuster that had 3 claims had a good rapport with the client, had that established relationship with them. So, hey, I think we should bump this up to 25,000, and look at, okay, like, sounds good.
There's trust there.
Like whereas with me, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking maybe 10 to 12.5 on this one. And they're like, okay, well, why? I'm like, look, I'm asking for half the authority that the other guy did, but because of that familiarity, they felt comfortable providing that person with the authority that they requested. So as soon as we got off the phone, I was like, hey, you need to move my file and, and give it to, whoever the adjuster was, and give me one of their one-offs. Because I think, part of, in the TPA, you're so focused, or supposedly so focused, on client satisfaction and serving the client, that you're watering it down. Yeah. And now I get it. There's experience levels, and you don't want to, senior adjuster handling, mailbox strikes or those clear liability easy claims. But, if you have all your BIs go to this person, that makes it, the handling, helped. And, and it was, I mean, fortunately, I had a supervisor that supported that and just said, hey, it might not be an even swap. There's kind of one-offs here, there, whatever. Let's try to condense these. And, but they took my input as a positive for the program. And, we got that blended together and figured out. So that was, of course, I mean, any time that, that you feel like you're heard and the actions are there from, from whether it's your immediate supervisor or your organization that support that. I mean, you just can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I had one of the TPAs, we had, the clients had a $400,000 SIR. And so we had a reporting at 50%. Well, for whatever reason, this, and nobody knows in hindsight, but the reporting level was 100 instead of 200. And I was, I'm trying to like, okay, well, the carrier adjuster is so overwhelmed. You have to do this, you have to do this. And I said, well, why aren't they all managed the same? Because all the other programs that I worked on are 50%, but this one's at 25%. So fortunately, my voice was heard, and they came back and they were like, hey, you know what? We looked at it, we agreed, don't know why it was set up that way. So we're raising it up to 50%. And and my response was, you're setting a bad precedent here. You realize that. And the vice president of the captive is like, how is this a bad precedent? And I said, because I kicked and screamed and you gave me my way. Like, so you're saying, so I said, while it's a positive, hopefully, and it obviously just tongue in cheek. I mean, it was for the good of the group. But, when you have what you feel are positive, a positive input that could, change the organization positively, or the claims handling process, the ease of the information back and forth, and you're met with an agreeable reply, then I think you just feel like you're heard, and you do have that just like, okay, I matter, in that regard.
The value.
Yeah.
Your value to the company.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, I had I've had nothing but positives. I mean, here at Flagger Force, I mean, when we have when the organization posts something about that we have opportunities, specifically on LinkedIn, I mean, I reshare it, or share the post, or whatever the case is. And just be, like I said, earlier, just because of the positives, that with my background, I have, different managers, different directors, and different departments just said, hey, we need to sit down. I need to pick your brain, because of the voluminous amount of information that you have and the challenges that you've had. Again, whether it was, juggling 140 different clients and stuff with the other clients that I worked with as well, because in the captive, while there was 132 clients, the divider was the Mississippi River. So we didn't handle all 132, but we handled a majority of them, because the Western team may have dropped the ball on a couple when they moved the work over to us. And again, that just shows, the leadership that was in place there. But coming here, I mean, it was, something like, hey, how about we utilize this website, oh, okay. So anything, I mean, and you obviously, I mean, it's tongue in cheek, but when you come into an organization and they're open to your ideas, and it's just like, all right, does that move us forward? Does that benefit us? And if, the simple answer is yes, I mean, then yeah, go ahead, Yeah, go ahead. And just like anything else, I mean, I at some point after, how many ever years, you feel like, you have that what you say matters. And to barely be with Flagger Force for 4 months now, and to have the executive team be on board with my recommendations and decisions, I mean, that in itself is just as a huge huge thing for me, that I matter, that I am heard. And we can have a difference of opinion, but at least we've discussed it. And now I understand somebody else's perspective as well. And maybe the blend is in the middle, or it's like, hey, I hear you, but like I said, that the one where, like, this has been this matter has been around for 4 years now, and this is the directive that we've gone, that we're going to continue to take.
It makes you want to keep doing that, because
Yeah.
I feel like if you're in a position where you're shut down by your supervisor or your employee, it silences you. Kind of like, not you personally, but just in general, like it kind of makes you feel like, all right, well, maybe I'm not up to snuff, or I don't want to, get shut down. But when you're not, and when your company is actually appreciating you, it just makes you want to help make it better. It's like a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. And, coming in new, I mean, having a fresh perspective, I mean, there were, excuse me, partnerships in place prior to my arrival. So I need to, I too had to learn Flagger Force's philosophy, organizationally and departmentally. And, but again, it's just such a, it's always, a great meeting. I mean, we have, you always talk about the best decisions are made at the water cooler, or whatever the plate, whatever the case is. We have a phenomenal on-site fitness center. And I mean, and you read that and it's like, oh, we have a fitness center. And you're like, oh, and I think of that dusty 1970s Nautilus multi-purpose, piece of equipment. No, I mean, we
A
have
rusty exercise bike.
yeah, exactly. And like, but no, I mean, we have a 3/4 court basketball court, which fits a volleyball court, and there's a volleyball net can be strung up on either side. The dumbbells go from 2 to, I don't know, up into the hundreds. The various plate loaded machines, an area for yoga. I mean, everything that you can imagine that, promotes that culture as well. And there's a team that comes in early, or a group that comes in early and works out together. There's a lunchtime crew. There's maybe a late afternoon crew, and then there's an after work crew. So even that organizationally, when you're, some of the folks, I mean, our building, has 2 floors. So there's times that I'm not going to see, folks throughout the day, just because of
logistics.
Yeah, the proximity and the logistics. Yeah. But to see them, after hours, just, but hey girl, hey guy, like whatever the case is. And, and just introducing yourself to fellow coworkers there as well. Just that, when you see the owner of the company in there working out, I mean, it's just that mindset of he makes time for fitness. I mean, he is, he values that as well. And I, hear him, hey, you weren't at the gym yesterday. I mean, so, kind of, when the whomever in a leadership role is, kind of holding you accountable, but it was such a positive just to hear that organizational leadership of, just like, hey, like I, missed you in the gym today, type of thing. I mean, maybe, that's just who he is. And, but it just, I don't know, for me, that just rings, that is somebody that cares, about his employees, and further, about the organization itself, of course.
And especially coming, off of, the last 2 years that you didn't really see anybody, it must be, it must be like kind of refreshing to be back in that atmosphere that we, in a way, probably took for granted, having people around and having the office gym, and like, those things weren't things that we really had the last few years. So it makes you feel more like, oh, things are like normal now. We're like getting back there.
Yeah, and I think, I think the big thing, especially in claims that I've seen is, everybody wants to work remote. And they're like, oh my gosh, I work so, my hours are so much longer when I'm working remote. Okay, well, you just told me that you went out and got your hair done and you were doing loads of laundry. So you're not working. So, forgive me, whereas, when you do come into an office, you are, I would say you're, it's visibly held accountable, minus the music that you're listening to in your office.
Mhm.
As far as what's going on, I mean, and it works organizationally. I know one of the TPAs that I worked for, nobody was able to work from home prior to the pandemic. Then we were forced to, of course. But then another organization was like, you're hiring people off the street that you don't even know their work ethic, and you're setting them up with, a home office. And and again, I think there is that inherent sense of entitlement, whether it's, even in your world, being promoted from an associate to a junior partner to partner, whatever your level is at your organization, tenure doesn't equal work product. And, just because so you've been an associate for 5 years, 7 years, have you ever reflected as to why you're still an associate when somebody that was hired at the same time as you were or after you is now a junior partner? And I think, and that, I mean, and again, this is Steve Ecker philosophizing here, of course.
Mhm.
But is it just like, what's your internal drive? And when I heard that, when in my previous role of, oh, I'm working so much longer, but then you have a tan, like, like, are you? You have some calluses on your hands. You're pretty. How are your flower beds? Type of thing. And oh, I just had to step away. And I get that there's a comfortable blend. But if you're taking 2 or 3 hours out of your day to go run errands, or you go grocery shop and then have and then get your hair cut, or do boys and girls alike. I'm just saying. Then that kind of bleeds into I always remember forever, one of the adjusters that I worked with, he'd have a bad call, and and everybody in the office heard his bad call. And then he gets up and he walks past the person that sits right beside him. He's like, oh my God, did you hear that? We're like, comfortable to say everybody in the office heard that one, and then oh, I need to go have a cigarette. But he tells 3 and 4 people walking out the door about that conversation. So what's that take? 10 or 15 minutes? He goes outside, and I'm sure somebody was out there smoking that he told his tale of woe to, so what's that? Another 10, 15 minutes. And then when you come in the door, you come back a different way, so you can tell another 2 or 3 people. So your 10-minute smoke break just took 45 minutes. So forgive me if I have no sympathy for you that you're so overworked and you've just run out of time. Well, I mean, how about some inner reflection here and realizing that, and again, Steve Ecker philosophizing, sorry, that you're contributing to to the fact that you're overworked. Like, oh my, and it's, hey, and unfortunately in that office, I sat on the aisle, like 2 main aisles. I was at the corner. So I got them coming and going. And, hey, what are you doing? Working. Well, were you in a bad mood? No, I'm working. Like, I'm in the middle of reviewing a 700-page demand pack. Forgive me if you had a frumpy phone call that I don't care about. And like, hey, we can talk after the fact, but like right now, Steve's focused on Steve, so.
Well, I think there's people on both sides of the aisle as to like work from home versus in the office. I think everyone has very, very divergent views on it. I'm always a big proponent of working from home, but I work best at home. I'm the person in the office. I get too distracted by all the people. I have to talk to too many people, and for me at home, I'm much better at focusing and not getting distracted. But it's different for everybody, I think.
Yeah, well, and I used to be friends with, well, I mean, we're still friends, but one of my previous coworkers was like, oh my God, like he was a big hockey fan. And he's like, there I was at 11 o'clock last night plugging away on claims. Now, me, I got in the office at 8 a.m. So for you to tell me that so you're evoking that or attempting to evoke the sympathy response. 11 o'clock last night, and I'm okay. Well, you were watching hockey because you have the NHL pass, but what you omitted was the fact that you didn't start work until 10 a.m. So, and then you went to the grocery store, which is what, if you take a half-hour commute just to go to the grocery store, like you have a solid hour and a half invested in your grocery, in your grocery run. So, it is just kind of like, but I mean, while I completely agree with you, Megan, when I worked from home, like I will be quite candid because whoever sees this from either one of those places could happily know this. I didn't work a full day. By about 4 o'clock, I was done. I had my daily diaries done. I was caught up on email, but there's always stuff you can do. Maybe it's, get a letter or something just like that, that cruise control last half hour of the day, or whatever the case is. I mean, it wasn't like when I worked from home, I did not have that interstate mentality of being living in the median, as I said at the beginning. But there were days, yeah, I had to work until 4:29:59. But there were days maybe around 3:45, 4 o'clock. It was just, at some point, depending on what your desk is and what you have going on, there's not a task that I can complete in the next 15 minutes. So I'll sit here and wait for my phone to ring. If it does, if not, I have Slipknot on in the background and we're going to start the day early. Or Christopher Cross. So we'll get both ends of the spectrum.
Depends on your mood.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and again, it is up to that, person's everybody's different, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, I worked from home a lot even before the pandemic, just because it served me better. But I personally am not like the type that will do other things. Like I sit in my office and I just work, and I like to take out the commute, because to me the commute was a waste of time for me. But but then when I got in the office, I was like, oh, people, like, let's chat, let's go to lunch, like.
Yeah. Well, and any claims person I talk to, like I was taught, like if you're handling auto claims, you need Matchbox cars at your desk, because you got to, because sometimes you just have to figure out like this, the facts that you reported defy the laws of physics. So help me understand. So yeah, you can draw it out and like have the intersection with the, is it it's one lane in each direction. Okay, well, is there a dotted line? Is it a passing zone? Or there's two lanes in each direction, or, whatever the case is. And you can, whereas if you have a couple matchboxes laying at your desk and you can, you can kind of navigate it quicker and like, all right, here was the resting spot. And, but then also sometimes just like, hey, struggling with liability on this one, what do you think?
Yeah.
And, I was just going to say something. I'm like, oh, I can't say that because whomever's listening to this will know which TPA I worked for. Like, oops. But yeah, there were times, when you are, maybe you have a familiarity, because whether you also handled fleet claims, or whatever the case is. I mean, and every incident, every accident has its own uniqueness to it. And, depending on venue, even have a different, it's different, based upon statutes in Pennsylvania. I mean, you can almost go right down the East Coast here. You got Pennsylvania is modified comparative, Maryland, New Jersey, or excuse me, Maryland and Virginia contributory. And then go down and you're getting into a couple pure comparative states, so.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time, but I didn't want to end without exploring this with you. You've had so many years of experience in claims, and knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to younger Steve?
Well, if we're short on time, you can just cut out the part about us talking about music. That might.
No, I'm not cutting that out.
I would say, I think currently in the industry, and I don't know if this is what I would tell younger Steve or not, but I think younger Steve that worked at the personal carrier, you didn't know everything, and you were frustrated because you didn't know the process. And but now I think with and I have, just a side note, again, due to my size, like the joke was, I always said that I was, the company they started a monthly newsletter, and I referred 6 or 7 people to this company locally, in a couple different offices, and I got a nice referral bonus for each of them. So my joke was, and I had a big fat goatee, I still have my head shaved, and I said that was my fee to join the WWF wrestling school, which of course now we have to call WWE. But I wanted to be a worldwide wrestling entertainer. And so they actually had an old bowling trophy in the office. So the first issue of the organizational letter, I was on the front of it holding this bowling trophy. And it was of course a spoof article about how I was an ambassador to the organization, but I was using my current insurance adjuster role as a springboard into the world of professional wrestling. And funny enough, I resigned from there prior to it coming out. So the first newsletter was me on the cover. and jokingly, like I still went in, I was still friends with the guys. I mean, we played basketball together, ice hockey. So I went in and I signed all of their articles. But I think, now, and I say that because I'm going to say 5 of them are still there. So the organization has made some transitions. Oh no, 4 now, because I know somebody recently got a different job. But I mean, would I still be in the organization? I wouldn't see why not. Again, hindsight, me telling younger Steve, like, you were just a youth counselor for a year and a half, like, nothing about insurance claims, like, deal with it. But I think in the world of the TPAs now, they're burning out too many young adjusters. So, you're seeing, I would say, you're going to see people with 3 or less years of experience, or probably 10 or 12 or more. There's no middle. And if the middle is probably flooded with people that shouldn't be in those roles, but they threaten to resign. But, as a TPA, I mean, you need to get licenses. So you're dealing with the licensure, and you're like, all right, well, try to manage the workload as best as we can. So you're promoting people into positions that they shouldn't be in. Yeah. And I think, and I don't know, you hear so many other industries for where you're seeing that less and less people are going into trades. The old cliche, we need ditch diggers too. Well, we need bricklayers, we need professionals that are working concrete, and they're, the younger folks that are coming out don't necessarily see those opportunities as viable. And I think as you're looking at resumes, it's, what do you get in a year, 15, 18 months, and then they're jumping, oh, wait, you mean I can go to a carrier and not have to worry about all these licenses, and my pending's cut in half because this is my file. So as an industry, and of course, that's me philosophizing, while that's not going to change, I don't see, I think that you're going to find out that retention, or where somebody leaves and comes back, they're maybe getting more money. And I don't think that it's there for, like, the grass isn't always greener. I mean, sometimes the grass is AstroTurf. And, just because that company's going to pay you $5,000 more than what you're currently making and your perception is to do the same job, or to do, like, whatever the case is, I can't say that I wish that I would have stuck out being in that, the personal auto carrier world, because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I don't regret any of the decisions I made. And I mean, so that I would tell myself that I should have given myself more time there. But then I that maybe speaks to the philosophy and the leadership also, whereas, hey, this is how we do things. Well, what about this? Okay, well, this is how we do things. Okay, so you're unwilling to listen to me.
Yeah.
And that's, and if, like you said, if you get, you're told no so many times, and then you don't feel the need to, that what you believe might be a good idea is going to be met with a closed mind, closed opinion, whatever. So you almost become, you just kind of like sit there and take it, like, all right, this is my job, and then you get frustrated with it because, I almost say, like, folks are institutionalized, because then they're like, oh, well, this is claims, nothing's going to change. Well, maybe it's worth a shot. Maybe it's, and you see that, I think, where people do have the courage to leave. And I left the international TPA. And then when I went to the more regional place, it was like, hey, this was different. And there were certain, the algorithms, start creeping into place as far as, the fictitious head count of what it takes to handle claims. But I think that's lost in the fact that the people aren't going to stay. And, while I don't regret, the decisions, I mean, some of those, while I didn't have a good feeling about my role in the international TPA, I had a good feeling about the leadership, and the immediate leadership in the branch, the day-to-day handling. And because I could, just knew what they were going through as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that almost brings us full circle to what you were saying too about.
I was going to say, did I actually answer your question?
I think so. But it does bring you full circle to, again, because I meant to bring this up when you're talking about how much you appreciate being at Flagger Force, because you feel heard, and they're not doing what you were just describing as, oh, that's the way it's always been done. One, you feel heard, and that there's a willingness to do things, change the way they're doing things, because per your suggestion, it's not like, oh, well, we've already done it. We've always just do it this way. So shush, go sit in your office and, play your music loud, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think think you brought it full circle. I don't really know if you answered my question or not, but you had some really great points.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would tell younger Steve to suck it up and,
Yeah.
You did. It's
give
true. You
that.
did.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, if the international TPA was horrible, I wouldn't have put in almost 14 years there.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, but there, then you, like I said, you get into the more the analytics now, and it's, and one of the other cliches that well, I'm not going to say we invented it, but we use is the paralysis by analysis. And you get so caught up, the forest for the trees, whatever you want to use. I didn't understand how, if you have a team of 5 adjusters and you lose an adjuster and you're down to 4, your head count is 1, you need 5. Well, we're going to evaluate that and determine what head count we need. Well, I can tell you 5 minus 4 or 1 is 4. And you need to go back to 5. Well, and it was always, it's, the model is to push, and ultimately you're getting quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. And, and we have to understand that, with us, where I know where that's come. So from, with the TPA that does our work, I see that, and I was in their shoes, and like I said, I mean, you can, add a TPA, you can use the pronouns, we, us, our, but it's not we, us, our. I mean, now it's we, us, and our, and I, and I think that, while you do that, there's definitely that different ownership. You know what? We don't want to, while it makes fiscal sense to settle this claim to you, to us, we have a philosophical difference that we need to just explore this a little more. And we understand that there's cost, associated with that.
Well, Steve, I truly appreciate you coming on and giving us your philosophies. And you're never short on words, and I always appreciate our talks. And I know you always make me laugh, and you always have like really good insights, and then you weave in the humor in the middle of it. So and this was no different. So I really appreciate you taking the time and sitting down with Melissa and chatting with us.
Yes, thank you. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
For our listeners out there, of course, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to the Defense of Arrest on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube at TNDR Podcast. And thank you, and look forward to listening soon.